Alright, so here we have the research paper by Filippo Biondi and Corrado Malenga, right? And this is synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography reveals details of undiscovered high-resolution internal structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Cool. What does that mean? So what is this research paper? Well, the PDF is about 44 pages long, and it's really kind of an interesting concept. All right, so I think what we kind of need to do is just understand a little bit of what SAR or synthetic aperture radar is. And basically it is satellite-based radar imaging that sends microwave pulses down to Earth, and that measures a reflected signal phasing and timing. And it's really good for seeing surfaces versus the interiors. Unlike ground penetrating radar, actually can penetrate through materials and map out what's below. This really just takes an image and it bounces off of the object, and then it is a category of those images. But it's also a little bit more than that, and we're going to get into it in a minute about the vibrations and everything. The research is proposing is really less about using a radar to see inside the pyramids, and it was originally about using a satellite radar to detect tiny movements and then trying to reconstruct the interior from those signals. So there is one thing to note before we kind of get into this, and we're going to go over this later in the rebuttal video, but SAR does have poor penetration into solid materials, right? It's not used to see through solid mass. And again, it's kind of important to make that stress because a lot of people are thinking that the SAR is like 3D imaging. It itself is not, but what they coupled it with, the Doppler tomography, is kind of where this 3D imaging idea comes in. According to the paper, the primary goal is to test and demonstrate a new SAR Doppler tomography method using a known structure as the target, right? When you think of it logically, it comes down to what is the largest structure that we have already mapped that can be seen from satellite. It's the Great Pyramid, all right? So that's why the Great Pyramid is chosen. We've already been able to map the inside of it, and it can be seen from a satellite, the outside of it. Now, the interesting part is the pyramid does resonate, right? Piezoelectricity is a real thing in the granite, and it causes the pyramid to vibrate. So what the Doppler tomography addition is it is basically catching images of the pyramid in between the vibrations, and then it is using the images in between the vibrations because essentially in between the vibrations, the outside is transparent and everything inside can be revealed. Now, again, I am no scientist. This is a very, very layman's breaking it down for a dummy like myself terms, and I could be completely wrong. I'm sure the comments are going to go off on this, but this is how I understand it. And so in between those vibrations, they can put together the pictures and map out what's inside. So basically, the idea of the research was to see if this technology can potentially be a reliable source to map something out. Because again, we already know that the pyramids, we already know the layout of the pyramids, and basically we can take the results of the SAR Doppler tomography and put that on top of what we already know, and if it reveals the same thing, then they can say, hey, this does work because the results are showing things that we already know, right? So that's how I understand it to be. Interesting part happened is the test results have not been peer reviewed, right? They are, this right here is peer review. So this stuff, go check this out, review it. But obviously, I personally think at the end of the day, that is what Filippo Biondi wants, is he wants people to look at his work and say yes or no, here is why it does, here is why it doesn't work. But let's be nice about it, right? That's also how things are going to get ahead in the world, is to be nice about it and to present it. And the only reason I'm talking about it, I'm a dummy, but I do understand things. So I feel like if I can understand it, I can try to relay it so everybody else can understand it and then form their own opinion instead of just going off the headlines, which is obvious. Everybody just stop going off the headlines, all right? Read 3 sources. Read from your side, read from the other side, and read from an outside source. Boil down the bullshit, and wherever all 3 of them match up, that's the kernel of truth. Follow that trail from there. Don't read the headlines. It's all bullshit. It's clickbait. And the headlines are really where this is all starting from, right? Because now it's really just spiraling kind of out of control. And so we're going to talk about in the next video tomorrow, 9 o'clock, the rebuttal, and is, you know, Beyond A stand in his lane? How are the people reacting a little bit? What's going on? What could be done? How could this be, you know, checked, reviewed, and taken further? So see you tomorrow. Thanks.